What's going on, guys? Ryan O'Toole back here again, giving you guys another ranking. With Spider-Man Far From Home out in theaters this weekend, the 23rd film in the MCU, I gave you guys my ranking of all the MCU heroes, and now it's time to do an updated ranking of all the villains, all 32 of them. If you guys are new here, feel free to click that subscribe button and that bell notification icon for more reviews, reactions, rankings, and more movie content. I placed all the main MCU villains as well as some of the iconic henchmen in there. I didn't include every single MCU villain like Ben Kingsley's the Mandarin. He's not on this list. And this is a subjective list. These are just my personal preferences for MCU villains. If you disagree, that's completely fine. Then just please be respectful. So without further ado, let's get going. Coming in at number 32 is gonna be Malekith from Thor: The Dark World. He's so forgettable. I mean, the character all around, nothing interesting about him. All his motivations have been done before. They're very generic. He just wants the ether so he can destroy the world. And he's a dark elf, so he wants bad things and blood. And the actor Christopher Eccleston from Doctor Who, he tries his best, but the character all around is so forgettable that there's not one memorable line, not one memorable action sequence about him. There's just nothing menacing or so interesting about the character, and that's why he's my least favorite. Coming in at number 31 is Dormammu from Doctor Strange. Now, Dormammu is basically a CGI hologram who comes at the end of Doctor Strange, and he's the one who's bubbling over China. See, his final battle with Doctor Strange was really creative. Dormammu, I've come to bargain, but there's not anything interesting or compelling about the character except that he does defeat Doctor Strange physically, but mentally he loses really bad. Coming in at number 30 is going to be the Elementals from the newly released Spider-Man Far From Home. Now, I'm not going to talk about these villains in depth because it just came out, but the Elementals are these really cool monster creatures that are in different forms. I thought it was really cool to see the powers of these different monster creatures, especially the water version of the Elemental, and it was cool to see their powers against Mysterio and Spider-Man really give them a challenge and run for their money. Coming in at number 29 is the Shocker from Spider-Man Homecoming. The Shocker, there's two versions of the Shocker. One is Logan Marshall Green, but he gets killed off. And so we have this new Shocker guy, and really no cool things about him at all, except he likes using his weapon that he has as the Shocker. But just to see him fighting Spider-Man at one point and getting owned by Ned out of all people. And the character just doesn't have much interest into him. Maybe he will be in future Spider-Man movies for sure with the Vulture, since he's loyal to Adrian Toomes. Coming in number 28 is going to be the Chitauri from the first Avengers. The Chitauri army is Thanos' army in the huge battle of robots that the Avengers fight off in New York. And Loki is leading the Chitauri just so he can get the Tesseract and basically destroy the world for Thanos. And some of them fight off Captain America and Black Widow, but they're just cool army robot alien creatures that are there to stop our main heroes, but they're awesome to watch. Coming in number 27 is going to be the Sovereign from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. The leader of the Sovereign is played by Elizabeth Debicki. Elizabeth Debicki is a really underrated actress, but here, as the leader of the Sovereign, they're just really pointless people. They don't start off as villains. They're really loyal to the Guardians. They're respectful of them for saving their planet. But Rocket is selfish and steals batteries from them, and now they're chasing after them for the whole movie, and that's why the Sovereign get involved. I just couldn't stand them once they get involved for the rest of the movie. They're just there to defeat the Guardians and kill them just because Rocket stole batteries from them. So you can understand why they're chasing after the Guardians, but to make them huge villain characters was pointless. At number 26 is Sonny Burch from Ant-Man and the Wasp, played by Walton Goggins. Now, Walton Goggins is a great actor. I loved him in The Hateful Eight, and he just plays villain roles really well, but not as Sonny Burch. Sonny Burch, same as the Sovereign, he gets involved just because Hope Van Dyne doesn't agree with the deal he has. So he's after Hank Pym's lab. He creates quantum realm technology, and this character was just so pointless. He should have been in one scene in one scene only. Walton Goggins, he's charismatic, but as the character, I didn't care about him at all. I didn't think he was menacing, and to see him get his demise with the true serum is what he deserves. At number 25 is Caecilius from Doctor Strange, played by Mads Mikkelsen. Now, Mads Mikkelsen is a really great actor, but as Caecilius, very underwhelming villain, like a majority of the MCU villains. He's a sorcerer, magician guy, and he gets wronged by the Ancient One, and so he's coming out for vengeance against her, and he has these badass henchmen next to him, and he just creates dark magic, and this character all around could have been so compelling, but he's not. Coming in at number 24 is Whiplash, played by Mickey Rourke in Iron Man 2. Mickey Rourke was coming off an Oscar-nominated performance in The Wrestler, and so he really phones in this performance as Whiplash. I mean, this character is boring the whole movie, and his dialogue with Justin Hammer about a parrot for 5 minutes straight was so annoying to the point where the character just got nauseating to look at. Sure, his look looked awesome in that Grand Prix race with his electrifying jump ropes, but still the character just feels like Ironmonger at the end, and the character just dies. Like, we just don't care about him, so why should I care about him? Coming in at number 23 is Jan Rog and the Supreme Intelligence, played by Jude Law and Annette Bening, and the rest of them. Basically, all the Captain Marvel villains come at 23. Jude Law is a very charismatic actor, and they start him off as being like this mentor for Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel. I knew that he was the main villain because it's Jude Law playing Jan Rog, a really big Captain Marvel villain. And Annette Bening as well was really weird as Marvel. She does some weird dance moves, and she was the one that did everything. And the rest of Jan Rog's team, Minerva, and all of them are just so forgettable to the point where you don't remember their motivations or why they do what they do. So, I mean, they're fine actors, but not given much to do. That's why they're at 23. Coming in number 22 is Aldrich Killian, played by Guy Pearce in Iron Man 3. Now, Aldrich Killian has a plotline we've seen before in many superhero movies like Syndrome, but this character starts off as a huge fan of Tony Stark. He wants to work for him, so he asks him to talk to him, and he's just waiting, and his whole life Tony ignores him, and so he comes back for blood and vengeance and becomes the Mandarin, the main villain of the movie, where not the Mandarin, played by Ben Kingsley, but he is the Mandarin, I suppose. But Aldrich Killian, he's not an awful villain, but it's just a really bland, cliche villain we've seen many times before. At number 21 is Ronan the Accuser, played by Lee Pace in Guardians of the Galaxy. Guardians of the Galaxy was a great movie, but it has the big issue of the villains being underwhelming. And Ronan the Accuser was very underwhelming in the first Guardians, as well as Captain Marvel. He was also in Captain Marvel. He was useless in that movie, and he's in that movie because he's a Kree. Homeland is the Kree, he's loyal to the Kree, and he just wants the orb, and he wants to destroy the world and rule the world. Ronan the Accuser could have been so much more compelling if there was more backstory to him. Just make him more menacing than he actually was, because he wasn't in this film. At number 20 is going to be Ghost from Ant-Man and the Wasp. Now, Ghost was a character that tried to have a backstory, but her character just basically has gone through a lot. Her character really isn't a villain, you could argue that, but she is the main antagonist the first 2 and 3 acts of the movie. She's beaten up on the heroes, so she technically is a villain. Her scenes as a villain were cool. I like the way she can walk through walls and fight off Ant-Man and the Wasp together, both of them. And yeah, I do like Hannah John Kamen. I thought she was great in Ready Player One. And in here, she tries her best, but there was so much you could have done with her character. Coming in number 19 is Yellow Jacket, played by Corey Stoll in Ant-Man. Now, Yellow Jacket is a villain like Obadiah Stane. And Corey Stoll, I do like the actor a lot. I thought Yellow Jacket was pretty cool in some scenes. The character does have relatability with Darren Cross having a riff with Hank Pym, so you can understand why he would get jealous he wasn't told stuff. But then he becomes the cliche Ironmonger villain with Yellow Jacket and fights off Ant-Man at the end. but still the character wasn't given much development or cool moments or memorable dialogue. Coming in number 18 is Justin Hammer in Iron Man 2, played by Sam Rockwell, Academy Award winner Sam Rockwell. I really enjoyed Justin Hammer with his scenes. He does have charisma to him. Once you understand this character more, he's really jealous of Tony Stark, and so he creates his own weapon system to rival Tony Stark, but then it just completely fails at the end, and he tries to get Whiplash involved because he also has beef with Tony Stark. But really, Justin Hammer just felt that off, and there wasn't much development for the character. They could have done so much more. At number 17 is Arnim Zola in Captain America: The First Avenger. Toby Jones, this is not really a villain per se, but he is the henchman to Red Skull. He's the Doctor, he's Hydra, so obviously you have to put Hydra in there. I think Arnim Zola is a really conniving villain sidekick, and in Winter Soldier with this holographic scene where he explains to Cap how Hydra infiltrated S.H.I.E.L.D., all these long is so intense and intimidating, and I think Toby Jones is really great as the character. Coming in number 16 is Ulysses Klaue, played by Andy Serkis. Now, Ulysses Klaue was introduced in Age of Ultron, where he loses his hand to Ultron, and so Andy Serkis plays the character, and he comes back in Black Panther, since he's a Black Panther villain, and he steals vibranium, and he loses his arm again, and so basically he's fighting off Black Panther and all these people, and he's the first to really see Wakanda for what it is. But the reason why Ulysses Klaue is so low, because I love the character, but he gets killed off by Killmonger. Like, I wanted more of Klaue because I love this character so much. Coming in number 15 is Obadiah Stane, played by Jeff Bridges in the first Iron Man. Now, Obadiah Stane's the first MCU villain. He's a very underwhelming villain. It's been done before. Jeff Bridges, acting-wise, is fantastic as Obadiah Stane, but once he becomes the Ironmonger at the end, it just gets really, that fight with him and Iron Man just felt really underwhelming, and it didn't feel earned. But the character was really cool. I really love Jeff Bridges' performance, but as the character of Ironmonger, they really could have fleshed him out more. Coming in at number 14 is Ego the Living Planet, played by Kurt Russell. Ego was such an interesting character in the first act. He's Star-Lord's father. You think he's such a great father, but he's deep down evil inside. He kills all his children and kills Star-Lord's mother, so Star-Lord's gotta kill him. And Kurt Russell brings that charisma to the character that I absolutely love, and Ego is such an evil villain that I really enjoyed watching, but I think there's 13 better. At number 13 is going to be the Abomination from The Incredible Hulk, played by Tim Roth. The Abomination was a really underrated villain. He's just a war soldier who's hungry for violence and to fight against Hulk. He gets that in his final fight with Hulk, and I really love that fight sequence. I think the Abomination's a great villain, a good match for Hulk, and just to see those two heavy monsters fight against each other was so cool to watch, and I thought Tim Roth did a solid job. Coming in at number 12 is going to be the Black Order, which consists of Ebony Maw, Proxima Midnight, Cull Obsidian, and Corvus Glaive. The best is by far Ebony Maw. Ebony Maw was such an intimidating presence to the Avengers, just that he can lift metal and throw it at the Avengers. Proxima Midnight was really cool with her spear, Corvus Glaive as well as a really sharp one, and Cull Obsidian was a really intimidating monster creature. All four get killed off. I was sad that Ebony Maw was the first one to die, because he was the strongest out of all the Black Order. I thought they were great. Now we're getting close. The honorable mention in number 11 is Ultron from Avengers Age of Ultron, voiced by James Spader. This villain was very disappointing for me, like I've said in my review. I thought Ultron should have been like a Thanos level of villain, that he has reasons for why he does what he does. He's just a generic villain who wants to destroy the world, the human population, and claim it his own. But James Spader as the voice of Ultron is great, but the character should have been more menacing and not throwing out jokes every 5 minutes. Top 10, here we go. Coming in at number 10 is Alexander Pierce, played by Robert Redford in Winter Soldier. Alexander Pierce, this is a much older villain, and he doesn't fight at all. He uses the mind. And Alexander Pierce is the man behind Hydra all along in S.H.I.E.L.D. for 70 plus years. He's the one who's led it all. And man, Alexander Pierce is such a great villain. Robert Redford did a great job as the character. I love just seeing him manipulate every single S.H.I.E.L.D. member. Captain America fooling him as well, trying to get him to admit Nick Fury's death. And Robert Redford was so intimidating in the role that he was so well incorporated as a main villain. At number 9 is going to be the Red Skull, played by Hugo Weaving. I love the Red Skull. I think he's such a great MCU villain. Just his scenes with Captain America as well. He's just a war-hungry guy who is fighting Captain America. Some people felt the final battle was very cheesy and over the top. I disagree. I think the Red Skull scenes in First Avenger were so great. And I think his purpose is reasonable. He just wants to claim Hydra and also the Tesseract. And it was great to see Red Skull come back in Infinity War, because a lot of people thought, how could they bring him back? Well, he's on Vormir guarding the Soul Stone. And in Endgame as well. And it was cool to see the character back again. But in First Avenger, he's an iconic villain. At number 8 is going to be Hela in Thor Ragnarok. Cate Blanchett, she's beautiful, great actress, and she's great as Hela. I love that she's Thor's sister and Loki as well. She's come to claim Asgard, claim the throne that she thinks is rightfully hers, and her to fight Thor and whip Thor's ass and Loki's ass together. And she's just this unstoppable force to be reckoned with in the first act. She has a dog too, and this army of dead people as well. She seems like she's going to be a really hard villain to stop. And it took a big fire monster guy, Surtur, to destroy her. But I thought Cate Blanchett did really well. They could have fleshing her out, have her do more, but I thought she was great. At number 7 is going to be the Winter Soldier. Now, Bucky Barnes, the character, isn't a villain, but the Winter Soldier is one of the villains in Winter Soldier. And the Winter Soldier is this assassin guy who's controlled by Hydra, which is Bucky, but he is the Winter Soldier. He is mowing down people left to right, and he blew up Nick Fury's car. And it's just so great. This character was awesome. His fight with Captain America on the freeway was so badass, and in the helicarrier fight. Coming in at number 6 is going to be Zemo from Captain America Civil War. Now, Zemo, played by Daniel Bruhl, is a great villain. He turns the Avengers against each other, especially Cap and Tony. And he's just a guy who lost his family in Sokovia during Age of Ultron. And he's had a hate towards the Avengers. So he had this plan all along. He was going to get them to hate each other and split them up forever. And Zemo is one of the villains who completed his plan at the end of Civil War. That's why he's such a great villain. He manipulates people and gets them to do what he wants. And many people don't see that as a villain. Well, I do, because I think Zemo is the most underrated MCU villain. Top 5, these are the best of the best. Coming in at number 5 is Loki, played by Tom Hiddleston. Now, I did Loki in the MCU Heroes list, but he started off as a villain in the first Thor movie and the Avengers as well. Loki's such an iconic MCU villain. He's the best well-developed character all around. He's born with the Frost Giants. He's a bastard son, kind of. And he basically just wants power. He wants that king, that throne thing, and Odin's not giving it to him, so he fights off Thor at the end of the first Thor movie, and he basically is a villain in the Avengers. He wants to claim the Tesseract and rule this army and take over the world. And I think Loki's one of the best MCU villains because of that. He's great in the first Avengers and in the first Thor, and he's become a great anti-hero then, but he did start off as a villain, and he's one of the best. Coming in at number 4 is Adrian Toomes, aka the Vulture, played by Michael Keaton. Now, the Vulture is a fantastic villain, and it's mostly Adrian Toomes. Homecoming starts off with Adrian Toomes. He's working, and Tony Stark runs him out of a job, and he's mad about that. He has to make money, put food on his table for his family, and he just turns evil. Does what he can to protect his family. Great threat for Spider-Man, but Adrian Toomes is what is evil inside. And Michael Keaton was perfect casting for the character. That whole scene with Adrian Toomes and Peter Parker meeting, you find out he's Liz's dad, Peter's crush. It's such a great scene. That scene with them in the car was so intimidating and edge of your seat, because Michael Keaton eats up every single scenery as this character. And he's the most human villain out of everybody on here, because you understand why he's doing what he's doing. Coming in at number 3 is gonna be Killmonger from Black Panther, played by Michael B. Jordan. This is a fantastic performance from Michael B. Jordan. He should have got nominated for Best Supporting Actor. Killmonger, what a great villain, and what a very sympathetic villain. You understand the hate and the vengeance he has for T'Challa because his father killed his father. And it's so riveting. Michael B. Jordan, from that museum scene, I completely bought in Killmonger. And when he throws T'Challa off the cliff, the waterfall, and becomes king of Wakanda, it's very Scar-like, but I loved it. Wakanda does open up its resources in the world to everyone. And that's what makes a great villain, where you understand where they're coming from. Coming in at number 2 is the newest villain, Quentin Beck, aka Mysterio, from Spider-Man Far From Home, played by Jake Gyllenhaal, one of the greatest actors in Hollywood. Mysterio, what an incredible villain Mysterio was. Quentin Beck is such a cool character at the start of the movie, him teaming up with Spider-Man and doing some other things, but Mysterio is one of the best written comic book movie villains from what I've heard from a lot of people. He's an iconic Spider-Man villain, and Jake Gyllenhaal seriously gives one of the best performances I have ever seen in a superhero film. But coming in at number 1 is obviously Thanos. Super predictable, dislike. I'm just kidding. Thanos is still the best MCU villain in my personal opinion, because Thanos in Infinity War, he's so relatable. He has a mission, and you understand why he wants to do what he wants to do. He basically wants to split the world into half. He wants to wipe out half of humanity because of overpopulation. And Thanos, since the first Avengers movie where we first saw Thanos at the end credit scene, basically staring at the camera, and in Age of Ultron, him getting out of his chair saying, "I'll do it myself." Infinity War, I love Thanos so much, watching him every single moment on screen. He is the main character in Infinity War. That was his movie. It was great to see Thanos, his motivations, and him being an unstoppable force to be reckoned with against the Avengers. The Avengers cannot stop this guy. And then he wins at the end of Infinity War. He snaps everybody, half of people, into dust. And then we use time travel and we face off against 2014 Thanos. And that Thanos was also straight up villain. He doesn't have that, like, relatable side. But still, Thanos' massive army at the end of Endgame and him getting turned to dust was a super satisfying moment for everybody. I am finally done. Yes, that is it, guys. That is my updated ranking on all 32 MCU villains. So in the comment section below, let me know your guys' rankings and if you agree or disagree with my ranking. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. All my social media links are in the description below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!